And good evening, 9 o'clock here on your Tuesday night, February 28th, as we recap what happened in the courtroom today in the Alec Murdaugh double murder trial. The disgraced former attorney accused of shooting and killing his wife and son in June of 2021. After we go over what happened in the court today, the final testimony in court, we're going to be joined by criminal defense attorneys Lori Murray and Taylor Bell. They will give us their take on the latest developments in the trial. Now, the final rebuttal witnesses were called today by the prosecution. But before we recap that testimony, we want to look ahead at what's planned for tomorrow. At 9:30 in the morning, jurors will be driven to the Moselle property. That's the Murdaugh's former property, the scene of the crimes. Defense attorneys had requested the trip to give jury members a first-hand look at the scene of the murders. Attorneys will be visiting the site as well. Judge Clifton Newman arranging the trip with some strict guidelines here. Jurors will not be allowed to speak to anyone about the trial and cannot ask any questions. They will then be driven back to the courthouse where they're going to hear closing arguments. We're being told those closing arguments will happen tomorrow afternoon. At least that is the plan at the moment. Well, today prosecutors were calling witnesses to counter arguments made by the defense testimony. Dr. Ellen Reamer is a forensic pathologist at USC. She had been conducting autopsies for more than 20 years and examined the bodies of both Maggie and Paul Murdaugh. She disagreed with the defense expert who said Paul was shot in the back of the head with the gun pressed against his skull.
Read with the book. A contact shotgun wound would cause severe gas expansion and damage to the head. What we have here is not consistent with a contact shotgun wound to the head. The damage to the head would have been much worse, even though this was already horrible.
How many pellets made it through the brain to the skull, to fracture the skull? How many pellets?
Oh, well, there were some pellets in the brain. I don't know how many.
Because you didn't x-ray it?
Correct.
So, since you don't count the number of pellets, tell the jury, please, how you know how many pellets hit the skull and fractured it and allowed this eruption to occur.
I don't know how many pellets. I never said that I did.
No, I didn't say you said it. I just want to know if you know it.
I don't know the answer to that.
And it's not important to you.
It doesn't really matter. It's really very theoretical. I examined the bodies and I made my determination based on examination of the body.
Dr. Reamer also made a point to say she was the only one who actually examined the bodies and not just pictures of the wounds. The state also calling Mark Ball today. He is a former friend and law partner to Alec Murdaugh. Ball was also asked about what Murdaugh said about his actions on the night of the murders.
As I testified before, my recollection of it was that he testified, or he told me, not testified, but he told me that he went to Maggie and then he went to Paul, rolled Paul over. His phone, I didn't hear the phone the first time he said that. The second time he went, it was reversed, where he went to Paul and then to Maggie. And like I told you before, I don't know whether that's just a slip, from one to the other or vice versa. But he definitely went, checked on him, then called 911.
There was also a heated exchange in the courtroom today between defense attorney Dick Harpootlian and reply witness Ronnie Crosby. Crosby works at Murdaugh's former law firm and previously testified that Murdaugh lied to him many times about his alibi, saying he never went to the kennels with his family. He also testified that Murdaugh was stealing money from a mutual friend who at the time was being treated with terminal cancer. Today, Harpootlian asked if he was angry with Murdaugh for stealing money from him and the law firm.
You're angry with him, stole millions of dollars from your firm. You admit your firm's not even called the Murdaugh firm anymore, right?
It is not. I don't admit that I'm angry right now. I told you I've gotten away from that. I don't have any feelings because you can't walk around with anger. I have been very, very angry about it because of what he's done. And he did it in a very callous way, a very deceitful way.
And you carry no, I'm sorry, maybe I just saw some anger there. Were you angry just a moment ago?
No, you keep trying to push a question and don't want to accept my answer, which is what it is.
That you've just given, your Zen, your Nirvana, your whatever the.
Your Honor, objection.
Mr. Harpootlian,
Forgiven him?
I came to the scene of these murders to support my partner. I was there. I saw things that hadn't even been talked about in this courtroom. I was there. I love Paul very much. I thought I knew who Alec was. I did not.
And a surprise in court today as State Attorney General Alan Wilson questioned one of the rebuttal witnesses today. Wilson has been present throughout the trial but had yet to participate. Orangeburg County
Yes,
Deputy
sir,
Chief
And
Dr.
what
Kenneth
is it?
Kinsey was
That's
recalled to
a
the
lo-
stand to counter claims made
satellite
by
map
several
from
forensic
the Mosaic
witnesses called by the defense. The defense witness testified about the angle of shots fired and determined that the shooter was about 5 feet 2 inches tall. Kinsey was asked about those results today.
Do you recall what the defense expert testified to the direction and angle of that particular angle of impact?
I do.
And what was it?
I think 1 and 3 degrees.
But do you remember, like, was it left to
Going
right,
up.
right to left?
Going up.
And from what way to what way? What direction to what direction?
Left to right, or right to left.
Right.
Yes, sir, right to left. I have to think about the quail pen in my head.
Are you confident that the direction was correct on this?
Yes, sir, I have no reason not to believe the direction. I mean, that would have to be a huge defect hole for it to throw the direction off.
How confident are you in the angle of this?
I have zero confidence in that angle.
All right, we're being joined now by Lori Murray and Taylor Bell, two of our criminal defense attorneys here to break down what happened in court today and talk about what's going to be happening tomorrow and the next couple of days. So testimony is finally over in this trial. At the beginning, I think we were told this might last a couple of weeks. Are you surprised we entered week 6, Lori?
I don't know that I thought we would go week 6, but I definitely thought it was longer than what they anticipated initially. So it's, hallelujah, it's over.
Yeah, Taylor?
I do believe it went longer than they believed it would. I think the juries are tired. They've been out of work, not getting paid. They've, it's been a financial burden for those jurors.
No testimony tomorrow because both sides have rested, but the jury is taking that trip out to Moselle. From our understanding, the property has not been maintained. The crime scene long gone out there. Why go to Moselle? Why take the jury out there? Harpootlian wants the jury out there. Why?
It's a huge risk in my opinion, but to get a full picture, you actually have to see the crime scene so you can judge the distance between Maggie and Paul. You can see how much time it would take to get from one spot to the other. And it's overgrown and not being kept up, so it'll be a little bit skewed, but I do think it's important for them to get a picture of it, but it is a risk. You never know how it could work for you.
You agree with taking the jury out there, Taylor?
I'm on the fence with this. I think it might be necessary, though, because some exhibits that the government has entered into evidence that will go back in the jury room are not to scale. So they show diagrams, but they're not exact in scaling of where the kennels are, as to where the hangar is, to where the house, the residence is, where the cabin is. And I think them being able to see that may open up a little bit, but it also could come back because they could feel real eerie there.
Don't you think it's weird too that they have all these 3D models, that are the computer animated models that they could totally create for them to see, and none of them have been entered?
I am actually really surprised the government did not do more animation with CADs of the technology that we have. Yeah, I am
There's
surprised.
one floating around on TikTok, and it's really good. It's her version of how the crime happened, but just the outline of the property, and she did 2, one without people in it, one with people in it, but just her outline of the property is really good, and that's, I don't know what her training is, but you would think that somebody who was really trained in this could do one, fill in the items that were in the buildings and everything. They just haven't used any of that.
Any of the recall testimony today stand out? I know we had the MUSC doctor who performed the autopsies, also a couple of friends of Alec Murdaugh on the stand today. Anything that stands out to you guys?
I'll let you go on that one.
I was looking and watching the pathologist today, recalling the pathologist, and I don't think she did a really good job.
No, me either.
I think when Harpootlian cross-examined her, she refused to budge on anything. You could see that she was shaken at one point when I watched her, and her water was shaking in her hand when he asked her to sit back down. He asked the judge, ask her please to give a yes or no answer the question I asked. He's getting the judge to give a direct answer to her. And I thought that might have hurt them. Now, in terms of who I think helped them, Kenley, love him. Everybody loves him. He's got a great personality. He's Southern. He's from Orangeburg. He's there talking to you like he's your uncle or your grandpa.
Yeah.
I think that helped.
I agree with you on that. I felt like today was going to a wedding and a funeral in one day. I mean, there was some that was really bad, like the guy that did the phone testing. I mean, it was just such worthless testimony, I thought. And but I have to say, all of those jurors are going to go home now and be throwing their phones.
You're 100% correct.
Because I did it last week. I honestly was throwing my phone across the room, and he's right. It does not light up. I threw it like a frisbee across the room, and it did not light up. But I think all of them will be going home and doing that. But at the same time, I thought it was a little bit boring testimony. I agree with you on the pathologist. She was the only person, I said this to him earlier, she was the only person who could make Dick Harpootlian look like the good guy. And then you get Kenley on the stand. It's just fantastic. So they ended well, and they ended with Alan Wilson, which is interesting, and got him to make his political appearance.
Yeah, the state attorney general actually questioning one of the rebuttal witnesses today. I don't know if we've ever seen the state attorney general ever.
I've never seen him in the courtroom.
Yeah.
Stepping up to a microphone. I've seen him sitting back in the back where the galley is, but I have never seen him step up to the microphone, take a witness, address a judge. I think it shows that he is invested in this. I think it's also a political statement for him that he knows this case. He wanted to prove to people, I've said it, where is the attorney general? If he wants free advertisement, this is it. Get up there and do the job. And I think he took advantage of that. So he called me out. He got up there, and I actually thought he did a good job. I was actually impressed.
I thought, it was pointed out to me today, he did a lot of leading on the witnesses. But overall, it wasn't objected to, so it got in, and his demeanor is so well. He speaks very clearly and with authority, and therefore I think they're going to pay attention to that. I did. I thought he did a good job too. And it was definitely a political statement, but I liked the fact when he first came to the courtroom, he wasn't there at the beginning, and then he came in, he was back in the pews, and the next thing you know, he's at the table. He made his way to the big table, with the grown-ups, and then at the very end, he comes in, he's standing up, questioning a witness. He crawled his way up, but he did get there at the end.
You're right. I noticed that too. I noticed he was in the back row, and then he was at the table, and now he's at the podium.
That's right.
I was impressed.
Yeah.
All right, so the judge today said that they're shooting for 9:30 in the morning to go to the Moselle property, but if all jurors are there by 9 o'clock, they're going to load up. They're going to go at 9 o'clock. But the judge also said he's hoping to be back by around 11 or 11:30 tomorrow. Okay, so when they get back tomorrow, isn't there going to be some arguments in front of the judge about charging the jury? Is that right?
I think they were going to do that beforehand. I can't remember what he said.
I don't recall what he said. I know that he said he needed proposed charging
maybe that's what it was,
documents, which is the law that goes back to the jury when they deliberate, because Judge Newman actually gives physical copies for the jurors to take back. He's also going to read it onto the record.
Right.
He's going to take any objections that either side has. I assume Judge Newman has already told them, propose your objections, be prepared. So I don't necessarily expect that to take too long. I think the longer portion of this may be him reading the charging documents to the jury. That is the most boring part of a trial right there.
Yeah, you go in and you try and watch closing arguments in a trial. As a spectator, we know you go in and you try to get out of there fast because they lock the courtroom doors when they do the charge, because you're not allowed to get up, and you don't want to get stuck in there for charging because it's awful.
Talking about closing arguments, the judge also basically today said he wants this. He wants closing arguments tomorrow he wants this case to get to the jury tomorrow. Surprising me, I thought this was going to be Thursday, but it sounds like it's
I
going to
think
be
he's
tomorrow.
going to try, but I don't. You know, I thought I heard him say that it was an hour there. So it's either an hour there or 30 minutes there and 30 minutes back, so an hour in travel. So if they're there at 9:30, that gets them there at, you know, that hour of travel will be 10:30. 30 minutes to look around. Maybe that's how he gets to 11. This judge is running it like a machine, and he, you know, he's not going to give any breaks when they get back. They're going to go straight to work. They're going to work till 1 o'clock like they have done this entire time, take their lunch break, and I mean, it's going to be full on. But you have these closing arguments, and Dick Harpootlian said, "Hey, judge, if you let me have," what's it he wanted? The close.
He wanted two closers,
bifurcated closers.
and he
Oh,
would
yeah, two
do
closers.
he would do a 2-hour limit.
He said, so he said, if you let us both do part of the argument, because this is such a big case, then I will limit myself to 2 hours. And the judge said no. So now he has no incentive to limit himself to 2 hours. So I think, and I know Creighton's not going to limit himself to 2 hours. I don't think he will. So I think you're going to have long closing arguments.
I think we're going to have 3 to 4 hours out of the state, because they're going to have two. They're going to open on the law,
That's right.
and then on the facts, and then we're going to have. Well,
Explain that, because I don't know if most people know that, because you can, the state gets to have the last argument. So they start by opening just on the law of the case and what they think the law is that's going to apply. And then the defense will stand up and give their closing argument. The state will then come back and do closing on the facts, that's where the fireworks will be. So they get to end on their fireworks.
that's where they tell the story. The state's going to talk about this is the law, and this is what it is, and this is how it applies. And they're going to come back at the end after the defense has given theirs and close on the facts as to why they're arguing it's Alec.
All right. If you're the prosecution and you're giving closing arguments, what do you tell the jury? Again, this would be the state.
That's just so hard because I'm a defense attorney. So, and I mean, I'm a former prosecutor too, but this one has been difficult because he put so much information in about the financial crimes, and I don't think we need that much financial crime stuff. So I would limit that, and he's not going to. So he's going to be talking about everyone. He'll probably start off by reading their names and how awful it's been, how much pressure he was under. I think that if I was trying to really give a good closing argument for the state, I would focus on the timeline not working. And he lied on the timeline. You can lie about anything else. You can lie about clients. You can do all of that. But you lied about your timeline in this case, and there's a reason why you lied. That is not because you were paranoid of SLED.
Taylor, same with you. If you're the prosecution
If I'm the
tomorrow.
prosecutor, I'm hitting on he's a thief, he is a liar, you shouldn't believe him now. I'm not sticking to that. I'm not staying on that, but Creighton I think will. Then I move straight to the timeline like Lori said, and I'm saying it's not possible for there to be any other person other than Alec. He put himself there. We're down to, I think it's like 12 to 16 minutes at this point.
18.
18 minutes at this point, that some random person is able to enter this property after he leaves and commit this crime and then clean up and be gone by the time he gets back. That's what I'm narrowing it down,
Right.
and I'm sticking to that. And then at the end, I'm bringing up that he lied about being there.
Right.
Well, and then I think you also have to admit or bring up the fact too, he's the one who said he got on the stand and testified that nobody else was there. It was impossible for anybody else to be there.
So the dog kennel video is probably going to be a big part of closing with the prosecution, right? That proves he was there at 8:45 that evening.
Absolutely, that's going to be all the videos are going to the wear the clothes, and then the dog kennel video. I think the clothes is going to. I think the state's going to talk about that. He changed clothes. Now the defense obviously will probably get that in a little bit. They're going to ask, why didn't you collect those clothes? But I think they're going to bring up, why did you change clothes, and why were you lying about being there? Absolutely.
All right.
They bring up every single piece of evidence they had. I mean, and I just had, again, I think it's overkill when you go so far into the financial crimes. But you have to hit on every single piece of evidence because it's a circumstantial case, and every piece of it is a nail in the coffin.
On the flip side, you are defense attorneys. What would you do with the defense closing arguments tomorrow?
Oh, there's so much there. You know, the thing, I think what I would do is say, okay, there are murders here. We know that they were murdered. We know, and we put up experts to show you it could have been two different ways. We've got the fact that these could have been two different ways. There could have been two different shooters. Even Kinley couldn't rule out two different shooters. But the point is all of that really doesn't matter. What really matters is the fact that they can't put a gun in Alec Murdaugh's hand. You know, you can do everything you want to do, but you can't put a gun in his hand, and the timeline doesn't work. And I would go back to the timeline even if I was them, because the timeline doesn't work. He doesn't have enough time to do everything that he needs to do to get on the road to Alameda. It just doesn't match up.
Your take, Taylor?
So I think what I would do is begin with, we're trying to give you the truth out here. We're sitting here trying to provide you things that the government didn't, because we're still searching for the truth. We might not know what the truth is, but our truth is Alec didn't do it. And here's why. It's because it's impossible for this to have happened, and for him to have cleaned it up, for him to have used two long guns, and it's impossible for him to have killed his own son and then gotten back there and, oh, what about all these other things that they didn't do? That's where I'm going with it.
They focused. They honed into they honed in him, and they did nothing else. They didn't look for anybody else. They trampled the crime scene. They didn't search Alameda. They weren't looking for anybody else except for him, and they did a really shoddy job at looking at him.
So Creighton Waters more than likely is doing the closing for the prosecution. Can't imagine anyone else doing that. But when it comes to the defense, Harpootlian and Griffin. And yeah, Harpootlian offered, hey, if you let two of us do it, would it incentivize you if we kept it to 2 hours or so? But that's not going to happen, apparently. So who closes for the
Griffin
defense?
closes.
Griffin.
I really think that Dick has been a good lawyer, and he's been around for many years, but he is older, and I think his age is shown a little bit in this trial, and I don't think he's capable of doing a closing that long. I don't think he's got the memory to do a case that long, or the stamina to do a closing that long. So I definitely think it'll be Griffin that you see up there.
I think Griffin for sure, and here's why. I think Griffin and Alec are friends before this. You can tell from the way Griffin talks, the way he presents himself to the jury, the way he presents Alec to the judge. They've known each other. I'm guessing they may have hunted together previously. I think Griffin knows a little bit more about hunting than Dick. I'm not sure he knows much. I think he's admitted that much about hunting.
Yeah,
and I think you're going to get a more
hunter. A lot of testimony about pig hunting today. Yeah, hunting pigs.
I think you're going to get a more personable approach from Jim Griffin here, in that he's going to be able to speak from the Alec that he knew as a human being, not the hidden second Alec that nobody knew. And I think that's what is going to, at the end of the day, if a juror is going to want to go back in there and fight for Alec, it's going to be somebody that feels for him, and it's not necessarily going to be the evidence.
I agree with you on that, but also I don't necessarily think I think maybe that's hindered him a little bit in this trial, is his feelings for him. I don't know that he's done a fantastic job of trying this case.
Absolutely can be a disservice if you're representing somebody that you're really close
but
with.
He represented Paul in the boating case, or the criminal charges on the boating case. So they definitely have a history together. But both sides have been a little bit lackluster.
Would you expect a fast verdict in this case? It's been almost 6 full weeks of trial here.
No way.
I said
we were arguing. We disagreed about this before we came on, but yeah.
I have said this past weekend, guilty after 20 hours of deliberation and the judge giving an Allen charge is what I have said. I'm starting to walk back off of there, as I don't know. I don't know those jurors. I don't know what they knew about this case before they got to trial. They all said they didn't know anything. I'm not sure I believe that. I'm really not sure I believe that. How did they not know anything about this in that small town down there? They'd not heard anything. And I think at least some of them knew who Alec's family was, and they may have trusted his family, may not have trusted him, but maybe a family member. And so I'm starting to wonder, is that going to play a role in the jury room where there's one or two that, you know, I don't see how he could have killed his own son.
Right.
I think you have you definitely have a long deliberation. But I go back to the fact that we were talking about last time I was here. The state has to put a weapon in Alec Murdaugh's hand, and they have to prove that he actually shot them,
Right.
not somebody else that was there and he just knew about it. They have to prove that he physically took a weapon and killed his child and killed his wife, and they have to do that beyond a reasonable doubt. And I am watching it, and I know people think I'm biased because I'm a defense attorney, but I am not seeing that they have done that. I don't think they've met their burden.
Certainly a lack of physical evidence, but circumstantial evidence, as the state has shown, has been enough to convict people in the past, correct?
Yes, it has, plenty of times.
All right, so again, closing arguments expected to begin tomorrow. If they deliberate tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow evening, and they go Thursday and they go Friday, and there's still no decision, are they coming back the weekend, or they just put it on pause till Monday?
That's a good question. What do you think Nemo would? I think he would send him home.
I think he'd send them home. I think he respects their time more than he respects the attorney's time.
Absolutely.
But I think he respects their time. Look, they've been there for what? We're into week 7.
Well, it started
6.
the last week of January. We've gone all of February, and tomorrow's March. So
I feel
it's been a
bad for
while.
them. I feel bad for them. They're not getting paid. Some of these jurors, I mean, you know, they've got families they've got to support. Now, some of them may get a book deal at the end or get to appear on some show, but I feel bad for them right now. That's a month without collecting a paycheck if they're an hourly worker. I feel really bad. So that kind of makes me think it might be short, that some of them already know what they're going to do and want to get out of there.
Yeah, the problem is they haven't discussed it, and so
Sure.
they're not supposed to discuss it. But they'll walk in the room and they'll take a vote as soon as they get in there and figure out who's where, and then I think they will take the evidence in and start trying to figure out how you convince that one juror. But in a jury room, you really have no clue what's going to happen in there. They could be totally focused on, you know, the frog on the other side of the room. You have no clue. They're going to pick one thing and, you know, slide off of the subject at any point in time.
It could be the most random
It
thing,
could be
too.
the most random
It could
thing.
have no purpose.
You know,
I've asked questions
absolutely.
of jurors after a trial, and they tell, and I didn't even, what?
I know, like you didn't even think that was an issue. I didn't even think you know, it's like preparing somebody for a deposition or something. You get the one thing you don't prepare them for. That's the one thing that they get harped on, you know, and beat down on. So I think that could happen. But I do think if the jury goes out tomorrow, which I think it's a little unlikely that the jury goes out tomorrow. I think that he might get all the charges. I think they might have to come back to start deliberating on Thursday. And if that happens and they go through Thursday and Friday, that's going to be surprising to me. I think by Friday afternoon they're asking for an Allen charge, or they're
I've
saying they're
stayed
deadline.
late with Newman before.
Late?
Late. I've stayed
I don't
late.
think he would do that in this case.
I don't
though.
think he'd do this in this case either, but I have stayed late, like 8 o'clock at night. Late.
That's late, 8 o'clock at night.
Well, for jurors,
Yeah.
I think people that have not, you know, that have got a family that are not invested in the case in any type of manner of representing somebody or part of the court system, I believe that's late. Yes, I would say that.
Here's why I don't think he would do that. And in this case, I think that he would, because jury deliberations could go on, he's not going to know what's going on inside the jury deliberation. He's going to know that it could take days. So I don't think he'll keep them till 9 o'clock, because he'll know that this could go well into tomorrow, no matter how late he keeps them. So, and again, we're talking about respecting their time. And the Allen charge, you know, if you don't know what Allen charge is, that's where they come in and they say, hey, judge, we can't reach verdict. We're gridlocked. Well, that judge is going to say, you know, an Allen charge is where he brings them back into the courtroom and he sits them down and says, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the fact that you feel like you're deadlocked. But if you can't reach a verdict, then another jury is going to have to come back another day, and we're going to have the same process all over again. So I would ask that you go back and try to reach a verdict again. And he sends them back in. And I have seen it, I can't remember what case that was, but I've seen where they go back in and within 15 minutes come back with a verdict.
I've seen that too.
It was happened recently. So, but I can't remember what
He'll tell
case
them
it was.
it's costing the state a lot of money.
It was, well,
Yeah.
it was just definitely costing the state a lot of
Yes.
money.
All right.
Yeah.
Lori, Taylor, guys, thank you so very
Thanks for
much
having
for
us.
your time tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Again, tomorrow morning, 9 to 9:30, the jury is going to make their way out to Moselle, the former Murdaugh property where these murders were committed, and then court will resume shortly after that. When it does, you can watch full coverage on WLTX Plus. You can watch on our YouTube channel, or you can watch on WLTX.com. And of course, our crews are there tomorrow. We will bring you the day's developments as they happen. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Thank you.